What's up, guys? On today's podcast, we are so excited to talk to Dalton. With Dealing with Dalton is the name of his brand. Super excited to dive into his business, learn a little bit more about what he does, how he does it. So, Dalton, thanks for jumping on here with us today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
We're excited to talk to you. We got to learn a little bit about your business at the recent Reseller Summit. So we want to dive a little bit more into that. And yeah, so we can just kick it off with, how did you get even started in reselling? Like, give us a little background about you.
Okay. So the way I got into officially reselling, because I've definitely sold things like on eBay and flipped things here and there before this, but it was never looked at as like a business and way to actually generate income. But I worked in the hotel or the restaurant/hotel industry for a while before reselling. And I was working at a hotel here in Orlando and made friends with my buddy named Carlos. And one day I'd never had the thought of going into like a thrift store and reselling, or going into like retail stores and flipping things from there. It's always just been like, oh, I have this, let me just sell it on eBay. I don't need it, instead of donating. That's my background of selling on eBay. But then one day at work, Carlos is just like, we were about to get off, and I remember him saying like, I'm about to go to Ross to flip some football cleats. And I'm like, what are you talking about? That made zero sense to me. I'm like, how are you going to go into Ross and buy some shoes from them and then sell them online for a profit? Just didn't make sense. But I went along with him. And long story short, we did not make any money reselling football cleats from Ross. But that did like kind of take us down a rabbit hole. You know, we got on YouTube and seen other people having success doing similar stuff. Eventually stumbled across, I'm sure Rally Roots was the first one. And at the time they were really big in the garage sale scene. So me and Carlos would like go to the garage sales every single weekend. And it got to the point where like it was garage sales taking priority over work. I remember one day like noon rolls around and my buddy from work texts me. He's like, hey bro, are you good? I'm at a garage sale, and it's just not the kind of guy that's just like checks in on me. I'm like, yeah, I'm great. What's up? And he says, you're supposed to be at work at 10:30. I'm like, oops, I am at work. And so basically that's how I got into reselling. It just kept going up and up from there, to the point where obviously I quit my job and I've been doing it for a few years now.
Awesome. That's really cool.
How long did you do it kind of part-time before this became your
full-time? Yeah.
Right. Good question. So I don't know an exact timeline, obviously, but I'd say probably 4 to 6 months at that job. I was doing it part-time. And then I got fired from my job, as you can probably imagine from that last story. I got fired from my job. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go full-time at reselling. And it completely flopped. It lasted about a couple months. And then I went and got a part-time job as a server at Bahama Breeze here in Orlando. And instead of going back into a full-time job, I just got a part-time job to basically supplement my bills so I could focus on the reselling side. And then I'd say another probably 3 to 4 months after that, I went full-time and haven't looked back.
Awesome.
That's awesome for sure. Yeah. So that probably, I mean, the first initial jump into it when you try to do it full-time, what was it that pushed you back into it? Were you not prepared for it, or what caused you not to be able to go full-time the first time?
Yeah. So there was a lot. Basically, the initial time that I was just garage selling and just dabbling and going to thrift stores, it felt like a business because I was making a lot of money, but I wasn't, treating it like an actual business where I was setting aside money to reinvest in inventory. I wasn't paying myself, quote unquote. So after I went full time as a reseller, it was just, I was just selling everything at that point, just anything I could get my hands on at garage sales, thrift stores. And when I was working, it felt like I was making a lot of money because I had that full-time income, and then what felt like a full-time income on top of that from reselling. But then when you got to the point of needing to pull from that income to invest in more inventory and really needing to budget for every single bill that you have on top of buying more inventory, that's where I went out, because I basically just ran out of money, couldn't pay my bills, and I couldn't buy more inventory. So I needed to go get another job.
We can definitely relate to that.
Absolutely.
Full time. Like, it's great when it's your side hustle money, because it's like, oh, this is like extra money, or we want to go on a vacation, go flip something and make some money. Like, let's go fund this, whatever we need to do, or even whatever unexpected expenses or whatever. But then once it's your full-time income, you're like, oh, okay, now we got to actually
work this a little bit different.
It's got to be a little bit different than when it was just a side hustle. So we definitely can. We've had those moments where like, oh, okay, we got to put this money aside, and it makes you like, all right.
That's cool. So, and you said in the beginning, you would just buy anything, you'd sell anything, you do that. And now we know a little bit more about your backstory, but tell everybody kind of where you're at now and kind of how you honed in on what you're doing right now.
All right. So that transition from going from the full-time job at the hotel to trying to be a full-time reseller and then getting that part-time job. When I got that part-time job to focus in on my reselling, what I learned after going through all my numbers and spreadsheets, the little spreadsheets that I had at the time, and just looking at how much I was profiting on each individual item, I decided to go just all in on just selling shoes. So right now I don't sell anything but shoes. And the reason I came to that conclusion is because whenever I looked back on what I did wrong when I tried to be a full-time reseller the first time, it basically revolved around me wasting a bunch of time with a bunch of other stuff. Because at least in the area that I'm in, I can get enough shoes to supplement basically all of my inventory, and I don't need to worry about anything else. And when you, to me, at least when you're doing one single category, you have an idea of, you know, how much is it going to cost per pair and how much am I getting back after I sell it per pair? So then you can break it down to like, this is how many I need to sell per week in order to pay my bills and buy new inventory. So it was more methodical and less just like, oh, I hope I find a really expensive item at the thrift store for cheap this week to, you know, cover everything. It was more, okay, if I want to be full-time, I have to sell 100 pairs of shoes this week. And 50 of those shoes are going to cover my bills and 50 of those shoes are going to cover my reinvestment into more inventory. Right. Absolutely. Just to dumb it down a little bit.
Cool.
Yeah, that's the way the numbers, it's just really a numbers game. Like you have to know your numbers. And that's something I think that a lot of resellers probably fall into, especially, I mean, you do too. Like it's a fun thing, the treasure hunting and going, and it's fun. And then when you're doing it just kind of as a hobby and you're like, oh, now it's really a business, I need to keep track of my numbers. You said little spreadsheet. So how did you keep track, and what do you do? Like, how do you keep track of your inventory now?
Okay, so now it is vastly different from in the beginning. Now it's pretty minimal, to be honest. When I was selling everything, I just had a basic Excel spreadsheet and I tried to enter in everything that I had and like how much I paid. But it wasn't very accurate. I was just like kind of guessing on fees and just not putting enough effort into it. And then when I went back to a job to try to, you know, assess what was going wrong with my business, I started paying a lot more attention to my spreadsheets. So I would literally, every single pair of shoes that I purchased, I'd have a whole entire spreadsheet. It had the SKUs on one side, so I could just search it up when it sells. And I put the exact fees from eBay, Poshmark, wherever it sold, the date I picked it up, the date it sold. So I knew which brands were, you know, selling quicker, which ones I should start avoiding, what models are doing better. But after doing that I probably did that a whole year. And as you can imagine, doing all that is a lot of work. And I do think that it's very necessary in the beginning because it taught me so much about my business. But one thing that I think a lot of resellers get wrong is that's not necessary once you get to a certain point. People think they need all that for taxes. And at this point, like I know what I need to pick up and I know what I'm going to profit on certain stuff. I'm more educated on what like the comps are showing me and I can do the stuff in my head. And now all I'm recording really is how many units I'm picking up per month and how much I'm spending per month. And then all the other inventory or all the other numbers I'm pulling from eBay, from Poshmark, such as like the gross revenue and all the fees that I'm paying, shipping I'm paying. But the really detailed spreadsheet did help me understand my business more. And I do think that's very necessary. But once you get an understanding of that business, I think that it's really, you know, a waste of time to a certain extent.
For sure.
Yeah, that's interesting because it did help you to know, you know, what is worth it and what do you have a low limit on, like you're only going to make this much profit, so you're not going to pick up this shoe because it's only X amount. Like how much profit do you have to make on an item, on a shoe?
So right now my average picking up shoes for around $10 and I'm selling them for about $30 after shipping and fees before taxes. So I'm turning 10 into 30 and I like to stay around that. Obviously that if I'm picking up a ton of shoes every single week, obviously I'm going to hit some home runs and find some like $100 profit shoes. And sometimes, you know, I'll find some kids shoes that are like $3 that I can sell for 15 plus shipping. And like, I can justify that ROI as long as there's not too much work going into it. So it's really just about averages. So like I said, I like to stay around that $20 profit per pair mark.
Yeah.
Cool. What about how many shoes are you actively doing right now? And what are you doing for storage? Like how, because I think of the stuff that we sell is big, and a lot of the times I can't misplace, you know, an oven somewhere in the shop. And shoes, I mean, I think when you get to so many of them, like how do you keep track of that and how do you find them once they sell and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so luckily the spreadsheet that I mentioned earlier really set me up for success in that ballpark because each shoe is individually added a SKU, a clothespin. I use a clothespin and I write the SKU that shows what shelf and what row it's on. So when it sells, I can go right into the eBay listing, see what SKU it is. I also take a picture of the clothespin and put that in the listing just in case there's any typos. I can see it with the shoe. And then I use a storage unit to store everything. So that's pretty much it. I got the clothespin, the inventory sheet that I was talking about, the spreadsheet. Initially, that's why I started doing that. So I could see like when it sells, I can just search that number and then I can put the numbers in. But then once it scaled up to this point, I have 850 shoes in inventory right now. It makes things so much easier. Like the inventory system is something that you need to put in place like very early because it's hard to, fix that towards the end.
Yeah. And when you can't find something after it sells, it's not very cool.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've been there.
It's kind of annoying because then you're like, I don't want to refund them, but I have to find this item and get it shipped out.
I think I just had to refund somebody like last month for an owner's manual. I typically don't do small stuff, and sometimes I'll pick up something, an owner's manual that I got out of the trash, sold it for $100, and then I could not find where I put the owner's manual because it's not that big. It's easy to lose. So no, I agree. Yeah, your inventory and how you're storing it and how you're keeping track of it is very, very important. So that's really cool. I like that way that you're doing it. And yeah, you even have the picture. Did I hear you right? You have the picture in the eBay listing or Poshmark listing, so all you do is go to that picture and then you can find exactly where it's at in your inventory.
Of course, yeah, because I ran into issues in the past where like, you're trying to get work done as fast as possible and you're trying to put up as many listings as you can and like get done for the day. And, typos happen. Like sometimes I'll put the wrong shelf number or put the wrong letter at the beginning of the SKU. And then it's like, I got to go through everything to find it. And then that's what leads to not being able to find the shoes. So I was like, a good solution to this is just when I'm photographing the shoes, stick that clothespin in front of the shoe, snap a picture so I can visually see the clothespin with that shoe. So if there is ever a typo and I go to that shelf and it's not there, I can just pull up that picture and it'll take me right to it.
Nice.
Yeah. And have you ever got any questions like, what's the clothespin for? Like just
surprisingly, no, I really haven't.
I feel like there's somebody out there that would just
yeah,
like, what is
it's probably going to happen.
Yeah. So what is your goal like as far as listings go? Like how many are you trying to keep listed each month? Like what's kind of your goal?
Yeah. So right now my goal every single day is to get 20 listings up every day. That's my goal for like a month. I'm looking at like a monthly period. So I want to average 20 throughout the month, but I obviously need to be listing every single day because that's just how eBay works. But I haven't yet hit a month where I've averaged 20 a day. I've hit 15. And for some reason, my brain doesn't work to where I can just jump up to 17. I make it hard on myself and then jump up to a round number. So I'm right now I'm working to hit that 20 a day mark. This month has been tough because, it's the holidays. Yeah. It took basically a whole week, not completely off, but, parents came into town, had to go have Thanksgiving. So this month might not be the first 20 month, but that's the goal I'm working for. I'm staying above 15 on average, but I'm still working to hit that 20.
Yeah.
Cool. And on average, how many are you shipping out a day? How many are you selling and shipping out?
About 12 to 13.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sales are coming in. So what is an average? I know like with reselling, you're very much a numbers focus, which is awesome, but reselling can have very ebbs and flows in your income. So what would be like your average month, would you say? And eBay that you sell mostly on, or Poshmark too?
I sell on eBay and Poshmark, but eBay's the bulk of it.
Okay. Awesome.
This is one area that I'm not super keeping track of down to the numbers of profit. I recently read a book, Profit First. Have you guys read that?
Yeah.
Good. So I'm like halfway through right now and it's just like opened my eyes. I'm like, I need to figure this stuff out and get actual numbers. But I'm assuming like a 40% net profit before taxes. And an average month is about $15,000 in sales. So I'd say right now my before tax income is like $5,000 to $6,000 a month.
That's awesome.
That's really good. Yeah, that's awesome.
And about how many hours? Because I'm always curious, how many hours a week are you putting towards your business?
So putting towards the shoe business, I would say I'm around that full-time mark, the 40 hours, but like I'm working a lot more than that because I look at content creation as a side hustle and it takes up a lot of time. So I am working over a full-time hours, but like I love it. I feel like the content creation is more just like for fun, like a hobby. And it doesn't feel like work. And like, I don't have deadlines for anything. Like I don't have to post something every day. I want to, but I don't have to. So that feels more like a hobby. but I do feel like the shoe reselling part of it does take up probably almost a full-time schedule.
Okay. Yeah. People don't realize sometimes what goes into creating content. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It can be a lot of work. So
Yeah.
It is for sure.
yeah, but it is fun. It is fun.
Oh, yeah.
I had a thought that you just said. I can't remember.
Oh, content creation?
No,
Oh.
it was about his shoes. Oh, when you said, the other part of side hustle being content creation, but then you have another part of your business where you are selling shoe trees, right? And
Yes.
this came from your business of selling shoes. So how did that come about?
That came from the business of selling shoes and the side of content creation, because that was the number one question that I'd get in my DMs or in comments. Like, what are those things you're putting in your shoes when you're photographing them? And for the longest time, I was just sending affiliate links to Amazon and making a couple pennies. And I'm like, at that point, I had built up a decent following on Instagram. There's a great community within the reselling area where everybody likes to support each other. And I was just like, you know what, let me just try to private label these. And I purchased like 4,000 shoe trees, just had them shipped to my door. I crossed my fingers they'd work out, and they've been doing really well. They've been doing very, very well. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So are you selling them mainly on, just social media is where you've been selling them? Like, and
Pretty much.
people know about them? Are you advertising for them?
Yeah. So I have a Shopify website, and I just have them listed up on there. All of the traffic is driven from Instagram and YouTube. I have ambitions to get more into the Pinterest area, because as I'm sure you know, Pinterest is like a search engine, and just like people go on YouTube to search how to photograph shoes, when you type into Google how to photograph shoes, sometimes there's Pinterest that pops up. That's another thing. Like we said, content creation takes up so much time. It's on my plate. I've posted a little bit on Pinterest trying to build that up, but I can see potential over there. But right now, the majority of my leads are coming from YouTube and Instagram.
That's awesome that you saw that problem.
Potential. Yeah, that's awesome.
So it was worth it. That risk of was it 4,000 that you bought at one time?
Yes. Yeah. 4,000. And I mean, I honestly love it. Like the feeling of like getting that Shopify notification come in, like it's like selling shoes is cool, but like I made a product and people are buying it, and it's like, I'm so addicted to that feeling. Like, I'm like, I want to private label this. I want to private label this. And I'm like, I don't have enough room for it in my apartment. So got to take it slow.
But the one thing that's cool about that is they all those things work cohesively. Like it's not like you're doing
the same market,
separate things. Like everything builds on each other. What you're doing, you found a product that works for the people that you're talking to. So it's like it all works together, which is really cool.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I've always like known about the private label space, but it's never really caught my interest, because the majority of people are like private labeling some like random thing on Amazon that has a good sales rank, and nobody, like, they're not marketing it themselves. They're just tossing it up on Amazon, and like that's awesome if they're killing it, but like for me that doesn't excite me at all. But whenever the thought of like, this is my brand is selling shoes and this goes perfectly with it, it's not a super expensive product, it's a $15 product, like, and it will be useful, it's better. Like I was thinking about like, selling merch like everybody does. And I do that and I love doing that, but like having a product that people can get and use, and it's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. And so this is for people photographing with the trees. Is that what you use it for?
That's the main thing. I use them for cleaning shoes as well. That's probably like phase 2 of my marketing, because right now it's like, I've only been talking about the utility of photographing them, but I also use them when I'm cleaning my shoes. I pop them in there, and like if you're ever trying to like scrub the uppers of some shoes, having them filled up, it just makes the cleaning so much easier. And cleaning and photography, those are the two main uses for them.
That's really cool.
That is cool.
Are you doing mostly like, what kind of shoes are you doing? Are they all used shoes? I mean, you're going to.
I mean, the bulk is used shoes.
Okay. Because you're not doing like sneakers, like the new sneaker drops and stuff like that. That's a whole
not really.
market.
Yeah, I mean, I've dabbled in that in the past, but like it's a lot funner to do that. Like having a shipment of like Jordans come to the door. Like,
right.
It's cool. It's cool to look at, but like you're making the same amount of profit, give or take. Like it obviously depends on the shoes. Like sometimes there's a Travis Scott collab that you can sell for a $500 profit, but the majority of those drops, you're making like $20-$30 profit, and you can make $20-$30 profit on used shoes at the thrift store, and one you have to pay $200 for and one you have to pay $10 for. So I choose the one that doesn't look as good, isn't as cool, but same profit margins.
and less out of pocket for sure.
Right,
Which is good. Yeah.
So are you going mostly to thrift stores and flea market and garage sales still? That's kind of your
Yep. I don't go to garage sales because it's I like to go to garage sales because I like treasure hunting. I like going and to antique malls and like seeing what I can find out there, but it's never really to resell at this point. It's just to like see what I can find for myself, because with garage sales, you don't know if they're going to have shoes and you don't know how many shoes they're going to have. But I know I can go to the main thrift stores in my area and they're always going to have shoes on the shelves. The flea market vendors are always going to have shoes out. So mainly stick to thrift stores and flea markets.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Cool.
I love going to yard sales because it's just, you never know what you're going to find, but he prefers the flea market or thrift stores.
Well,
too.
I grew up at yard sales and I loved yard sales, but the problem is the yard sales back when I was a kid were huge and they had tons of stuff. Now you can go to a yard sale and they can have a couple things out front and you're like, okay, I just wasted my time driving to this place. This one vendor or this one homeowner has a couple things and I wasted my time. And now you go to our flea market. Our flea market's got like couple hundred vendors of all the type of stuff that's at a yard sale, and you can get them all in one hit.
It's a bunch of yard sales in one shot.
Right. And honestly, I haven't tried to go to yard sales since they got rid of yard sale treasure map. So it's just like, it seems like a headache to try to find them. You know what I mean? So I've given up on them lately.
We have some community yard sales, like they'll see signs. So the yard sale is Saturday, so we'll go, and then, but most of the time we're disappointed. They people are sitting out there with like 5 things, and we're like, that's not really a yard sale.
Yeah.
Like we do yard sales probably twice a year because our kids like they have so much fun with it, and then like we get rid of some of their toys or extra inventory or whatnot, and like, we want a big yard sale. Like it's a come
tents out front. It's pretty sweet.
Oh yeah, those are the best.
One of the last questions I had that I was thinking when you were talking, when you first stopped like or went back and got a part-time job, did you have it in your head that, because I've had this we've had this discussion,
we've done this,
like did you have in your head, okay, well this isn't gonna work, I have to go back full-time, or I gotta go, or did you always know you were still gonna do it, or did you want to go back full-time? Like what was kind of that thought process, because it's hard, like that's a kind of a hard spot to be in.
100%. No, I didn't have that thought in my head whatsoever. Mainly I don't think I've ever even talked about this. This is just the first thing that came to my head. Whenever I went full-time after getting fired from my job, I went home. My family lives in Kansas, and I went home and I was having lunch with my friends, and they asked what I was doing. I was like, I got fired from my job, and they knew I'd been like reselling on eBay and stuff. And I was like, I'm just gonna do this full-time. And they laughed at me. They like, not in like a rude way, just like how boys like, well, your friends will laugh at you and like, doubt you sometimes, just in a playful way, in a competitive way. But they, like, I could see in their face, they genuinely believed that I would not do it as my full-time income. And so like having to go back and get that job, I was like a little devastated. Yeah. I was like, I have to face these guys the next time I go see them. And just having that was enough to be like, no, I'm getting a part-time job. I'm going to figure it out. And like, the day one of that job, I was like, I know I'm going to quit eventually.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, that's awesome, because it's hard to go. You're like, it's more, having those friends and having that thought of I have to go tell them, like that's not fun. I want to do it. I got to make it happen. And how long ago was that you went full time the second time? How long have you been full time now? Like
3 years.
Okay,
nice.
I saw you.
No, I was going to say I had the same feeling. I mean, even when we did it as a part time when we were first married, for years we did it. I didn't think it was legit. Like you couldn't legitly be a reseller. And this was probably before social media and all that stuff back in the day. We didn't think that that's
just always our extra money.
Yeah. And, but I would tell people about it and they'd be like, dude, how much did you make on flipping that? That'd be like $300-500. And they'd be, whoa, that's awesome. But you never put it together. Hey, you can do this full time. It's pretty sweet. Right. So no, I totally get that too. That's pretty cool.
But we have had moments too where we're like, okay, not you never do it, but I'm like, one of us needs to go back and get a real job. And luckily not so much recently, but we had that conversation for a while.
Yeah, we went full time. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes that thought does creep in. Is like, so like if I went back and got a job, I'd hate it. I know that. So if I like have that thought creep in, I'm just like, what are you thinking, dude? But like sometimes it's like when you own your own, like you do your own thing, you own your business, you're doing whatever, you're your own boss. It always feels like you're working. At least for me, I haven't figured that out yet. Like I can't just shut it off. And that's the only thing I miss about having a job is like when I clocked out, like mentally, I was clocked out. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, trust us, we do the same thing. I mean, we're up till 12 or 1 o'clock sometimes doing social media stuff or stuff for the back end of the course, anything like that. So
recording a podcast like last night.
It is. You kind of envy people who get a clock out at 5 o'clock and they get to go home and do whatever they want. But then at the same time, they got to be to work from 9 till 5. And it's like, I like my freedom. I want to go do what I want to do when I want to do it. So this other part is worth it for me.
And you're not really employable anymore.
No,
like,
heck
there's
no.
no way
There's no way to get a job.
Yeah, and then not to mention, like when I had a job, I like the hotel that I worked at in January every year, they gave you a sheet and you had to like rank your holidays. So they seen who liked which holidays best, and that's how they determined which 2 holidays you could take off for the year. And like now I haven't missed a holiday in 3 years. It's like I can't go back to that.
That's awesome.
No, you don't realize. Yeah, it can be stressful, but man, that like just having those holidays, being able to take off when you want to. Is that's definitely something that's awesome.
Yeah.
So
well, dude, hey, give everybody who's listening, somebody who might be on the verge of doing this full time, give them one piece of advice that, you know, helped you get through where you're at. What could you tell somebody who's right there on the fence, thinking about doing this full time and wanting to do it, reselling, whether it's shoes, whether it's whatever it is? Do you have any good advice that you could say?
Yeah. So I definitely, this is like a super controversial topic, as I'm sure you know. I only sell shoes, and I don't think that everybody should like completely niche down to only one thing, but I do think that like have like what's it called? The Pareto principle, the 80-20 thing, like having 80% of your business one thing makes it so much easier to, you know, for every aspect of the business, like we talked about earlier, you know your numbers, like you know exactly how much of this item you need to sell every month to pay your bills, to reinvest. And then you still, if you don't want to go all in on that one category, you still have that 20% to play with. And so I think niching down, because I could talk about this all day. Like when you only sell one thing, you got one photo setup, you got one inventory system, you're shipping one thing, you've only got 3, 4, 5 boxes that work for every single, like it's just streamlines everything. On top of that, one thing that really helped me is making friends with people that do the same thing as you. Like back to what I said about my friend telling me I couldn't do this, I'm super competitive. So like having a few people in my area that are also resellers, like there's some people that view that as competition and they want nothing to do with it. I am good friends with most of the resellers in my area. And like, if one of them is just absolutely knocking it out of the park, they're killing it, I don't want to be the guy that falls behind. Like I'm not going to let him just like do this much better on eBay and me just fall behind. Having people around you that push you, that motivate you is way more important than people think. And then I guess another top tip that I would give you guys, another thing that I noticed, not like I didn't make this switch right when I went full time after quitting that part-time job. Like this took me like a year and a half into my business to finally make the switch, is to stop focusing on getting the top dollar for every single item. When I started being like, you know what, just because these shoes are worth $200, I can still sell them for $120 because I picked them up for $10. And that's a dramatic example, but like it even goes down to like, okay, these shoes are worth $55 and I got a $40 offer. Sure, you could wait out for $15 extra, or you could sell it today, go to the thrift store, buy 3 more of that exact same item, and then just keep going. Like just focus on moving inventory as fast as you can, even if you're taking a lower profit, and just move as much inventory as you can.
Yeah.
I think those really are good.
Yeah.
I love them. Yeah. I love them. And yeah, I think those are great pieces of wisdom, great pieces of advice.
And I just wanted to add, when you said, you know, get to know people, other resellers, there's a great community online. So they're of resellers. So if you don't know anybody in your physical area, you can go online, and there's just so many. And we've been doing stuff on the internet, like content creation, for 7 years now, but we never really tried to get to know many people until the last couple of years. Not really for competition. I think it was more like, we don't want people to think like we're copying them. We're just going to stay in our lane. Like this is what we're doing. But then the more that we have, it's like, there's some really cool people out there. This has been a lot of fun. Like, so we started this podcast last year, like, let's interview some people. Like, see, there's so many different ways to do this business. So it's fun to learn about all the different ways. So
yeah. And I will also mention, like, that doesn't, just because like you want to enter the community, the reselling community online, like you don't have to become a content creator. Yeah. I talk to so many people in my DMs on Instagram every single day that have never once in their life put out a piece of reselling content. And just interacting with people in the comment section on Instagram or YouTube or TikTok, wherever you are, just like being in there consistently, not being afraid to just DM people and say what's up. Like you will become a part of the community a lot quicker than you think, just by being active and commenting and talking and and all that. So you don't need to be putting out content. Just start talking.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah, awesome. So
cool. Dalton, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for all your great words of wisdom that you've done. How can people reach out? How can they find more about you if they want to, get in contact with you, or if they just want to follow what you're doing? Let us know the best way that people can contact you.
Yeah, so I am Dealing with Dalton on all platforms. There's no periods, no underscores, no nothing. Just Dealing with Dalton. I'm mainly on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. You guys can find me there. And also dealingwithdalton.com if you want to pick up some shoe trees.
yeah, we'll put all those links. I was going to say, we'll put the links to your Shopify store there in the show notes so that you guys can go get a pair of shoe trees. That's awesome.
That's it.
So
Dalton, thank you again so much for doing this. Greatly appreciate your time. Hope you have a wonderful day and go sell some more shoes.
Of course. Thank you guys so much for having me. It was a blast.